YouTube, what up? Welcome back to the channel, and as always, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's Matty B, and we're here for a track preview, track prediction video, and I'm amped up. Supercross has been so good lately. You never know what you're going to get. It's been like a box of chocolates. Gone are the days where you know the results before you get there. The racing has been incredible this year. But we're going to dive into this track layout for round 12 in Foxboro. We're going to talk about the weather and the potential for a mud race. Honda HRC finally has a fill-in for the Lawrence brothers, and it is an 80-year-old grandpa, so we're going to discuss that. Also, some silly season rumors. I'm starting to hear more and more rumblings of some riders moving to different teams for next year, so we're going to get into some silly season rumors. And then last but not least, we're going to talk Daniel Blair and his new partnership with Club MX and the role that he's got there. And before I get too much further into the video, I got to give a huge thank you to my channel sponsors, QuickMoto.com. If you're looking for a sweet set of graphics, backgrounds, canopies, or more, use my code Burkeen20 for 20% off. Also, Sirius Studio. I'm now a partner in the company, so anything you buy on their website using my code MB820, a small slice of that goes to me. Got the link in the description. And then last but not least, this bike waffle is almost wrapping up. Not very many spots left. Huge thank you to everybody that's participated. Got all the info you need to enter on screen for a chance to win a bike for $100. First up, we're going to get into breaking down this track layout for Foxboro. It's not going to be the longest lap time of the year, but I do really like what I see. We got long rhythm lanes that seem to have multiple options that are going to be available into 180 bowl turns, so that's always good for getting alongside somebody and having the ability to make the block pass when you get to the turn. The first half of the track is actually pretty sick, while the second half is kind of a basic national, but let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with the start, I think this is the longest start straight we've had all year. This has been the year of the short start straights, but this one's a big old long one, full stadium length, going to get through the gears and into turn one, a big long flat sweeping corner into this first rhythm. That is a long rhythm section, and there is a chance of rain, but I'm going to do this track breakdown as if it's going to be good because I don't really feel like telling you guys they're going to roll, and maybe double. So if it does rain, might have to throw this breakdown out the window, but whatever, it's all right. Looks like there's two options through this rhythm section. The inside looks like the first one is a little bit more lift up. Maybe you could go 2, 3, 3 again on off the tabletop and then double out, or maybe go on the lower side, roll in, and then triple, quad, table over the two singles, and then single out into the bowl turn. 180-degree berm to the left. We love those. And then out of that corner, another long rhythm section, two long rhythms back to back right off the start. So hopefully we don't see too much carnage with offsetting rhythms. But in this one, I think it's going to be a 3 in, 3 again, and then quad, table over the two singles, and single. Very similar to one of the lines I said they would maybe use in the first rhythm. Another option could be double in and then triple, step on, step off, double, or maybe even step over the tabletop and then triple out. Pretty cool to have such long rhythm sections. The options could be endless, but then you got another 180 bowl turn to the right this time, and then a very basic section, the finish line, and then a Supercross triple. Very similar to what we saw in Glendale for the Triple Crown earlier this year. Probably won't see much action going down except for maybe some post-race celebrations over the Supercross triple. But one thing to watch for is guys could be using the Supercross triple to set up a pass into these next two 90s across the start straight. I can already see it now, scrubbing the Supercross triple to the outside, then trying to cut back and beat them to the inside of the second 90. But two 90s to the left across the start straight. Then we've got what looks like a little step over and then a double out, maybe a step on, step off single, but it really looks like you're just going to step up and then double out. And that brings us into our second Supercross triple on the track. I feel like this year the majority of the tracks have only had one Supercross triple, which has been really cool because that just leaves more room for more obstacles that actually separate the guys, but this one's got two. But a nice place for these guys to take a breather over the Supercross triple, then into a 180 to the left, and then out of that corner, we've got a little single into the whoops, and they've implemented a new rule as of late where they don't want any jumps before the whoop section. I think that's probably because they want the speeds lower, something like that. But just in my opinion, I actually think jumps after the whoops is way sketchier than jumps before the whoops, because if you get loose at the end of the whoops and then you get a jump or something at the end, stuff can go really bad in a big way. But I mean, it's Supercross. I feel like that's kind of inevitable to be in the contract at some point. But hopefully they leave this how it is. Maybe we would jump into the whoops and then you could go 3-3-3, something along those lines, or maybe soak up the single on the way in and then pound through and do the blitz into a 180 right that shoots you back onto the start straight. Oddly enough, on the map, it doesn't look like there's much of a berm there after the whoops. So hopefully they build something. And really, we need a berm there because that could set up some outside in and then slingshot back down the start straight pass action. If they don't build a berm, it's going to be really hard to pass because you could just go defensive and hug the inside all the way down the start straight. Then we've got this weird little little split mogul section. I'm totally just taking a Denny Stevenson stab at this one, a shot in the dark. But if you went to the inside option, I think you would then roll and then double out back onto the start straight. If you went outside, then you could rail the bull turn and then hopefully triple back onto the start straight. So maybe the inside and having to do 2 jumps, and the outside being able to rip it in 1 jump. Maybe that'll even out. But out of there, sweep back into the first turn and back into the long first rhythm section. And that's a lap for round 12 in Foxboro this weekend. And I really think on paper we would have a good racetrack for the weekend. But the one huge variable that we have looming over us heading into the weekend is the weather. Quick overview starting with today in Foxboro. It's cloudy, it's cold, and then we got some rain starting tonight and into the early hours and even early afternoon of tomorrow, Thursday. And all that rain's not really the problem. I think the track's already built. We all know they can cover it and keep it dry. Then tomorrow, overcast and no rain. But the problem lies with the Saturday forecast. It's all good in the early morning, and then starting around 11 a.m., a small chance of rain, which starts to grow more and more into about a 50% chance of rain for when the night show would be ran. And I feel like these kinds of situations are the only times where the Dirtworks crew can't pull off the unthinkable and make an incredibly raceable track out of nothing with horrible weather. But when it's raining while the race is happening, you can't cover it. You can only do it so much. So I think we have a lot higher chance of having a true mudder this weekend than we did last weekend in Seattle. And at the very best, if it does rain during the night show, it'll be slippery, it'll get rutted, it'll get technical, and most of all, it'll be entertaining. So now we're going to get into the predictions, and I'm going to do these predictions as if it is going to be raining. Starting with the 250 class back to the East Coast this weekend, and I would be picking Max Anstey if his fibula didn't leave the chat, but I'm going to go with a Northeast guy for the win, Seth Hammaker. Grew up in Pennsylvania. The dude knows how to ride the mud, and he's got a lot of momentum right now in the series, so I've got Hammaker for the win. Then in second, I think it's going to be Tom Vial. He's from Europe. He's grit his teeth in the GP, so he's good in those conditions whenever it's adverse. So I think he'll be really good this weekend, but I don't think it'll be enough to stop Seth. And then in third, I think it's going to be RJ Hampshire. RJ is definitely good in the mud also, but he does tend to get loose as a goose, and these conditions are definitely more easy than any to have that happen. Then into the 450s, I predicted it last weekend, but damn it, I don't care. I'm predicting it again. For the win, I'm going Aaron Plessinger. Dude loves the mud. He didn't quite get it last weekend in Seattle, but he still had an awesome ride. He's 3 out of 4 for the last 4 races for podiums, and I just think it's time for the Cowboy to leave on top. Then in second, I've got Cooper Webb. I don't think he's necessarily a mud specialist, but the dude's just so clutch down the stretch in these championship runs, so I don't think he's going to throw it away. I think he'll land on the box. Then in third, I think Justin Barcia is going to rev bomb his way to his first podium of the season, and really, I wouldn't even be too surprised if we swapped the first and third spots. I think the win's going to come down to Barcia or Plessinger this weekend. But either way, I'm excited. Rain or shine, it's Supercross. It's awesome. And I can't wait to sit on the couch, relax, and enjoy the action this coming weekend. Now let's get into some more moto news. Grandpa Earl is back. Honda HRC has finally got a fill-in for the Lawrence brothers. And it's Grandpa Earl, 80-year-old legend, but nah, it's Dean Wilson. No April Fools there. Dean did an awesome YouTube video coming out as Grandpa Earl riding the HRC bike. Very entertaining, as always, on Dino's YouTube. The press release states that Dean has been announced as the fill-in rider for the final 5 rounds of Monster Energy AMA Supercross. So that doesn't include this weekend in Foxboro, but he starts next weekend in Philadelphia. And it's really cool to see the team have fun with the announcement and put some humor into it. I feel like back in the day, Honda was known for being super rigid. So I'm a huge fan of how they're operating these days, and I'm a fan of them putting Dino on the bike for these remaining rounds. Walk around the pits, you won't find anybody that doesn't like Dino. Dude's a legend, and it's really cool to see him get to go out with a send-off on a factory Honda. Now let's get into some of the juicy stuff, some silly season rumor mill action. And today we're going to start with Joe Shimoda. Now don't take this as gospel. These are only rumors. None of this stuff is confirmed. But I do have a source that says Joe Shimoda is headed to Rockstar Energy Husqvarna next year. Apparently they're waiting on KTM to finalize the budget for the Austrian brands next year. And then the deal is a go. So that would be an interesting one for me. That would be the 3rd team for Joe in about 4 years. And this Honda stint really hasn't quite worked out like I think everybody had hoped, especially him and the team. And also kind of crazy to hear one of the Austrian brands pursuing top talent, especially given their recent financial struggles. And speaking of financial struggles, this would actually relieve some finances from KTM, but we've all heard the Chase Sexton to Kawasaki rumors, and a source has told me that Chase has signed a letter of intent with Kawasaki, and that gives KTM 30 days to use their right of refusal to match the offer. So of course everybody is saying the deal is not done, because it's not. Just because you sign a letter of intent does not not mean the deal is done. And again, please don't take any of this as gospel, but I have even heard that Chase has already ridden the bike. So stay tuned to this developing story. And one of the craziest parts of this Sexton to Kawasaki talk to me is the fact that they already have Jorge Prado on a long-term 3-year deal. And I can only assume they're paying him a pretty penny as he's a 2-time MXGP champion. So maybe after the beginning of the Supercross season, they're already worried and they're trying to think of a backup plan in case Prado doesn't work out. I don't know. But if Sexton does end up at Monster Energy Kawasaki alongside Jorge Prado, that opens up a whole nother problem for the KTM group and who they're going to have as their marquee rider moving forward, as losing Chase Sexton would be a huge blow. But they do have Tom Vial, who appears to be on his way to possibly locking up his second consecutive 250 East Region Championship this year. And if he does do that, then he'll effectively be a 450 rider next year. He will have to move up, and I can only assume KTM won't want to hang him out to dry, so maybe they'll move up Tom Vial. But would KTM be okay with their 450 lineup consisting of only Tom Vial and Aaron Plessinger? And speaking of AP, he's yet another piece in this very convoluted silly season puzzle. If Sexton leaves KTM, you can only assume that AP will be safe, as he'll probably be their top guy. But if Sexton stays, will they want to move up Tom Vial? Will they want to give up Aaron Plessinger? The dude's the whole package. He's got the fans. He's got results. So I don't know. They're in a sticky situation for sure. But a team that could be in an even stickier situation is Monster Energy star Yamaha. And it all starts with this guy, Eli Tomac. I feel like we all expected him to be retired by now, and I think the team did too. It's been widely reported that Cooper Webb joined the team last year on a much lower base salary that got kicked into a much higher base salary this year because they were expecting the departure of Eli Tomac. And now reports are coming out that Tomac may even be looking into a contract extension into 2027, which is absolutely insane. The real winner is us fans. We get to keep seeing Eli in action, but will he have to jump ship? Will Star Yamaha have enough money to keep him? It's going to be really hard to let a legend like Eli Tomac go, no matter what the financial situation is. And this might ultimately come down to a decision between the present and the future, because another rider's deal is likely hinging on what Tomac does. Justin Cooper, he's been coming on very strong through the midway point of the Supercross season. And obviously right now, Tomac's a much better choice, and you're not going to want to give him up. But think ahead to the future. In 2 or 3 years, Justin Cooper could totally be one of the guys based on the trajectory he's on right now. So once again, a sticky situation, one that I'm glad I don't have to make any decisions in. This situation, on the other hand, is not so sticky. There had been a lot of early season buzz about where Ken Roczen might end up next year, and a lot of people were throwing out Ducati as a landing spot, but now it's being reported that Kenny is seeking another deal with Suzuki and may even have already signed it. So I honestly think it's a good move for Kenny. He's really got that bike exactly where he wants it. He's got it tailored just to him, and he looks great on it, so I don't see why you would change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And speaking of Ducati, it's being reported that they may not be ready for Supercross next year, so if they're going outdoor only, this is my pick for Ducati. I think Dylan Ferrandis would be a perfect pick for them. A pro motocross champion from a few years ago, and he never seems to quite get it going for Supercross. So give this guy an off season to develop that Ducati, send him in fresh for the pro motocross season. And I really think that could be a good debut for Ducati. But that is pure speculation. I have not heard one word about that. But I am super excited to see who ends up on it, because the bike has shown incredible amounts of potential already in the MXGP season. And then last but not least for today's video, new landing spot for Daniel Blair, the new general manager of Club MX training facility, and he's going to be involved with the Supercross team. I may or may not have known this was coming, but the PR dropped today as Club MX owner Brandon Haas said he called DB last Monday and he was on the property the next day to walk through all the items they had outlined on the phone. So they knew he was serious, they knew the dude was a workhorse, and they know he can be a valuable asset to the facility and the team. Then Daniel's quoted about how passionate he is about the sport, and even though he wasn't really looking for a big change, when this opportunity arose, he knew it was something he couldn't pass up, as he's known about Club MX for a long time and he's always had respect for how they operate. And after talking to Daniel himself about it, I know the dude could not be any more stoked about the position he's been given, because he gets to do all the things that he loves to do and the things that he's good at. He gets to do scouting, he gets to be involved with the team, he gets to be involved with the training and the facility and all that kind of stuff that plays into his strengths. So I'm really happy for the guy. When my friends find success, it's kind of like me finding success. I get really stoked out for him. But that's all I got for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, let me know in the comments what your predictions are for the weekend and what you thought about my takes, the rumors, if you think I'm an idiot. If you want to throw some hate my way, do it all. I ain't worried about it. I'll take it. Thank you guys for watching. Catch y'all next time.